Hello, this is Lisa, CEO of Sight for White, welcoming you to this week's Talking News on Friday the 7th of June 2024. I have to admit this week I did escape just for 48 hours into the sunshine. It was a very welcome break with soaring 35-degree heat. However, I'm now back in the office and we're preparing a mini newsletter to come out to you next week. There are 3 important events coming up. First of all, the 29th of July is open house here at Millbrook. We're inviting members, volunteers, supporters and fundraisers all here for the 29th of July to enjoy, hopefully, some sunshine and a cream tea. Then secondly, the 24th of September 2024, from 11 till 2:30 at the Riverside is our annual Low Vision and Low Hearing Community Day. Again, this year we're going to take much more of a community feel to this and get people who are engaged with hobbies, peer-to-peer support and more of a holistic rather than just equipment. So please do put it in your diaries and come along. Even if you feel that you think you have everything you need, it's always good to come along, meet new members, make new friends and offer them some peer-to-peer support too. So that's the 29th of September. And then finally, we have now taken delivery of our new electric tandems. We received grant funding and due to the popularity of the tandem bike riding last year, we have managed to purchase 3 electric tandems with a trailer, with transport, and we're just gathering volunteers. We're hoping to get this as a monthly club, opening as soon as possible with hopefully the slightly warmer and drier summer weather. So please do get in touch with Susan, 522205 or volunteers@iwsb.org.uk. That's volunteers with an S at iwsb.org.uk. Thank you very much, everybody. Stay safe. Lisa, CEO, Sight for White and White Sense.
Here is this week's charity news for the 7th of June 2024. Swimming is on Monday at Medina Leisure Centre between 1:15 and 2:15. We have the whole use of the large pool, so whether you are a lane swimmer or someone who just enjoys gentle exercise in the pool, this is open to everyone. The cost is £6 and transport can be arranged where possible.
There is yoga on Tuesday at Millbrook House. Yoga runs from 1:45 p.m. to 2:45 p.m. and the cost is £4, which includes refreshments. All are very welcome.
Our monthly Art with Maddie is on Wednesday at the Parkland Centre, Cowes. The cost is £10 to include materials and runs between 10 a.m. and 12:30 p.m.
Our weekly coffee and chat is on Wednesday at Millbrook House between 10 a.m. and 11:30 a.m. The cost is £2, which includes coffee and cake. Staff are always on hand to help with any enquiries and equipment will be available to try out.
Thursday is Mix and Mingle. This group meets between 10:30 a.m. and 2 p.m. every week. Booking for this group is essential and at the moment there is a waiting list for people to join.
Our next walk and talk will be on the 21st of June. This month, we'll be walking from Sandown Pier to Shankling Seafront, weather dependent.
We once again have been invited to attend the Royal Victoria Yacht Club Disability Day at Fishbourne on July the 6th. This is a day where you can have a go on all sorts of boats and yachts out on the Solent. If you would like to be part of this great day, please call the office. If the numbers are oversubscribed, a ballot will be held.
We would like to hear from you. If you would like to be part of this year's Newport Carnival procession on the 20th of July, we are looking for members, family and friends to join us to promote the charity and the work we do here. If you are unable to walk the route, you are very welcome to sit in the minibus and wave to the crowds.
Our monthly 100 Club has spare balls available. If anyone would like to buy a ball, it is £2 per month or £24 for the full year. The more balls in draw, the higher the prize money each month. If you would like to take part in our monthly draw, please call the office. This is part of our fundraising activities.
We are appealing for tombola prizes for our upcoming summer events. If you have anything you wish to donate, please do not hesitate to pop into Millbrook House, or alternatively, please call the office to arrange collection.
If you would like to join any activity or want more details, please call the office on 522205.
This article from the Isle of Wight Observer, read by Howard, concerns problems with cross-Solent ferries. Following rocketing prices and declining frequency and reliability of cross-Solent ferries, for the first time the leader of one of the two main national parties has made an official statement on Isle of Wight ferry services. Labour leader Keir Starmer said on Monday, Labour is committed to finding a solution to the issues with White Link and Red Funnel, and I'm baffled why this hasn't been tackled before. Labour would ask the Competition and Markets Authority, that's the CMA, to look at the situation and whether intervention is needed. The CMA is the body that can take action if a market isn't operating as it should. The Labour Party's commitment will be welcome news to long-suffering travellers who disagree with the Conservative view that everything is fine. In March, Transport Minister Lord Gower confirmed in a letter to Councillor Carl Love that the Conservative government will not act because the Solent ferry market is functional as it offers a range of services for islanders with multiple operators providing commercially viable routes. Keir Starmer's intervention comes after Labour's Isle of Wight West candidate Richard Quigley met Shadow Transport Secretary Louise Haigh at the Labour Party conference and discussed how to find a solution to the current state of ferry operations. Louise immediately understood the problems and gave me access to her team to work on the issue. Very little has been done since 2009, when former MP Andrew Turner asked the Office of Fair Trading to look at our ferry market, explained Richard. Things are much worse now. We all know it's not an easy or overnight solution, but this is the first time a leader of one of the main parties has acknowledged just how big a problem it is. It's become a barrier to opportunity for work, education, and family visits. You can't even see the end of a show as you have to hot-foot it back for the last boat. Labour gets how unfair this is on the islanders.
Man plucked from the sea in Sandown during early hours search. From the Island Echo, read by Susan. A man was found in the sea off Sandown during a large-scale search and rescue operation in the early hours of Thursday morning. Concerns were raised for the welfare of individual at around 2 a.m, which led to the response from police, HM Coast Guard and the Isle of Wight Ambulance Service. Bembridge and Ventnor Coast Guard rescue teams, Coast Guard Rescue 175 helicopter, Bembridge RNLI all-weather lifeboat and Sandown and Shanklin Independent Lifeboat were all tasked at the vicinity of Sandown Pier. Coast Guard rescue officers and police conducted a shoreline search on foot using paraflares to illuminate the area. A drone with thermal imaging was also deployed. Meanwhile, the lifeboat swept up and down the coast and the Coast Guard helicopter scoured the wider area from above. By 2:40, the casualty was sighted in the chilly waters between Sandown and Shanklin by Bembridge lifeboat, with volunteer crew members hauling the male on board. He was subsequently transferred to Bembridge Lifeboat Station, where he was taken into the care of police and paramedics.
This is Michael reading an article from Isle of Wight Radio. Man who assaulted shop workers during Newport robbery is jailed. Daniel Taylor, aged 30, entered Central Convenience Store on the High Street at around 2 p.m. on the 21st of March this year, and initially inquired about alcohol. Taylor left the store before returning around 10 minutes later to buy some sweets. After a member of staff opened the till, Taylor reached over the counter and grabbed some cash whilst yelling at the cashier. The cashier was then punched in the face by Taylor. Another employee, who was in the store but off duty at the time, tried to stop Taylor, but he was punched and kicked. Taylor fled the shop with some cash, but left behind his mobile phone. He then ran to a nearby hotel to change his clothes before he was spotted by officers in the town. He was arrested whilst hiding in a skip behind Helford's. During his arrest, he admitted he had robbed the store and was found with £20 on him. Appearing at Isle of Wight Crown Court on the 29th of April, Taylor, of Lotherville Road in Ventnor, admitted 2 counts of robbery. Taylor appeared at the same court on Friday the 31st of May, where he was sentenced to 20 months in prison. DC Louis Daniels said, "Officers on the Isle of Wight work hard to target retail criminals and work with businesses to keep them safer. Much of this involves targeting habitual shoplifters and those who are disorderly and abusive to retail staff. On the more serious end of the scale, we have offenders like Taylor who use physical violence against shop workers in order to make financial gain. This behaviour will never be tolerated. I hope the local resident and business communities on the island can be reassured that police swiftly responded and arrested Taylor after this incident, and he is now behind bars."
This is Patrina reading from the Island Echo. Best of the Best celebrated at Camera Pub and Beer Awards 2024. The Isle of Wight's best pubs and beers have been celebrated at the 2024 Camera Pub and Beer of the Year Awards. These annual awards aim to recognise the best of the best in a crowded marketplace, reflecting the opinion of everyone in the local branch of the campaign for real ale. Coming out on top was Newport Ale House, where the event was held on the 26th of May. It is described as a new breed of micro-pubs, which are a reincarnation of the old beer houses. Small, basic, friendly, and offering a fine range of beers. The ale house was closely followed by the Castle in Sandown, the Perennial Traveller's Joy in Northwood, and the Highdown at Totland. Top beers honours went to Goddard's for Fuddle-Dee-Dum with Island RDA, Goddard's Punch and Porter, and Island Yachtsman just behind. Winners and runner-ups get a framed certificate so their customers know they're in a well-regarded establishment.
This article from Isle of Wight Radio, read by Howard, concerns preparations for the general election. The island has officially received the writs from the Clerk to the Crown for the general election. The official part of the process for a general election was overseen by Graham Biss, High Sheriff of the Isle of Wight and Returning Officer for Parliamentary Elections, and Nolan Winter, Deputy Acting Return Officer. The writs are issued by the Lord Chancellor and commands that an election be held for Members of Parliament for the Isle of Wight East and Isle of Wight West constituencies. Once Parliament is dissolved, writs are hand-delivered by Royal Mail managers to every constituency in the UK. Receipt of the writs on the island was taken on Friday. Once the count is complete following the general election on 4th of July, to formalise the result, the returning officer must write the names of the winning candidates on the writs and return them to the Clerk to the Crown, who is based in the Houses of Parliament. The day-to-day arrangements for the election on the island are discharged by the acting returning officer and the elections team.
Fire safety inspectors help island hotels prepare for summer season. From the Isle of Wight Observer, read by Susan. A group of fire safety inspectors from Hampshire and the Isle of Wight Fire and Rescue Service have been visiting hotels and guest houses across the Isle of Wight over the past couple of weeks to help them prepare for the busy holiday season ahead. The inspectors have been working in partnership with business owners to ensure all premises they visit meet the latest fire safety regulations and that their risk assessments are all up to date to ensure the safety of holidaymakers and staff. HIWFRS Station Manager for Protection Simon Whelan said, "The holiday season is a particularly busy time on the island and we want businesses to know that we are here to support them and offer advice and guidance so that they can ensure their hotels and guest houses are as safe as possible for their customers. Fire can have a devastating impact on businesses, so it's vital that risk assessments are regularly reviewed and updated to increase fire safety. Our dedicated team of fire safety inspectors work closely with all business owners, RPs, to help them achieve and maintain compliance with fire safety legislation. We are an empowering organisation that will always be happy to assist business owners to do the right thing." Since the introduction of new fire safety legislation came into force at the end of last year, all business, regardless of size, must record their fire risk assessment and fire safety arrangements in full, so that these rules also apply to owners of holiday lets. Top tips for keeping your guest accommodation safe from fire: you should carry out suitable and sufficient fire risk assessment for your premises. Don't forget to record your findings. Put adequate fire safety measures in place. Consider escape routes. Check fire alarm systems regularly to ensure they're working, and consider signage to guide your guests to exits in the event of an emergency. Ensure your employees, guests and visitors are aware of what to do in the event of a fire and that they understand the fire safety measures in place within your premises. If you're on holiday, don't forget to check out that hotel, guest house or rental has adequate fire safety measures and carbon monoxide detectors in place before you book.
This is Michael reading from the Isle of Wight Observer. New Island Line timetable from Sunday, June the 2nd announced. South Western Railway has announced a new timetable for the Island Line beginning on Sunday, June the 2nd. The new timetable will see one train every 40 minutes between Shanklin and Ryde Pier Head in each direction, providing 3 services every 2 hours, providing additional time to make cross-Solent connections. An example of this 40-minute pattern during a weekday morning would be Shanklin 6:07 to Ryde Pier Head 6:34, connects with ferry service to Portsmouth at 6:45. Shanklin 6:51 to Ryde Pier Head 7:18, connects with ferry service to Portsmouth at 7:45. Shanklin 7:30 to Ryde Pier Head 7:57, connects with ferry service to Portsmouth at 8:45, as would the following 8:07 service from Shanklin. The changes will be in place until the autumn, will improve reliability by giving trains more flexibility at either end of the Island Line to help maintain connections with ferries and hovercraft across the Solent. Services will call at Smallbrook Junction on days when the Isle of Wight Steam Railway will operate. This timetable also allows time for these stops while still being able to serve the pier. Mark Dunn, Southern Western Railway's Islands Line General Manager, said, "We know just how important it is for our train services to connect with ferry services departing from the island and arriving from the mainland, which is why we have made these temporary timetable changes for the summer that will see 3 trains running every 2 hours between Ryde Pierhead and Shanklin. We have listened carefully to feedback from our customers and stakeholders, and while we still aim to deliver a 2-train per hour timetable, we want to do all we can to make our services as reliable as possible, especially for the holiday seasons. We recognise the Island Line's overall performance has not been at the levels our customers expect, and we are working hard to make improvements that will provide a reliable service our customers can have confidence in. SWR services on the mainland will also change on Sunday, June the 2nd. Services between Portsmouth Harbour and London Waterloo will be retimed, which will also improve connections with ferries. Changes to Portsmouth Harbour to London Waterloo via Guildford are as follows. Fast services from Portsmouth Harbour to London Waterloo will depart at 15 minutes past the hour. Stopping services from Portsmouth Harbour to London Waterloo will depart at 33 minutes past the hour. On Saturdays, fast services from Portsmouth Harbour to London Waterloo will depart at 15 and 45 minutes past the hour. Stopping services from Portsmouth and Southsea will depart at 37 minutes past the hour.
This is Katrina reading an article from Isle of Wight Radio. Praise Be Knighton Yoga Studio opens doors at former Isle of Wight church site. A highly anticipated new yoga studio opened its doors in Knighton Monday evening. St Joseph's Roman Catholic Church on Rectory Road has been empty for nearly 15 years after it stopped being used for mass or prayer meetings. Now, after being on the market since September 2015, the building has finally been returned to community use, primarily as a yoga studio, but also available to rent for events. The plans were initially put forward by local instructor Emma McGilvray of Ames Yoga. Emma is now offering a variety of regular classes at the chapel studio. She said, "Bringing life back to this village assets has been the talk of the local community for the last few months, and everyone seems very pleased with the improved street scene. I have always thrived to make yoga accessible to everyone. Yoga is not determined by age, body shape or ability. Anyone can enjoy the benefits."
This article from Isle of Wight Radio, read by Howard, concerns problems with people stuck in Southampton. Hundreds of islanders have reportedly been left stranded in Southampton following a Take That concert on Saturday night. The British pop band have been performing at St Mary's Stadium as part of their UK tour, which has also seen performances from the likes of Ollie Murs. Islanders flocked to get tickets when they went on sale earlier this year and made the journey across the Solent, reassured by Red Funnel's announcement of extra Red Jet sailings to get them home again at the end of the night. However, Isle of Wight Radio listeners have reported that the extra 23:45 sailing did not have the capacity available to ferry concert goers back to the island, with hundreds of residents being directed to catch the midnight car ferry sailing instead. One listener told the Isle of Wight Radio, "The queue for the jet was so long, and when we got within touching distance of the boat before being told we couldn't get on, they, Red Funnel, have told us to get the car ferry, which apart from taking longer would be fine, but we've parked in Cowes and will end up in East Cowes." Further turmoil has been caused with passengers reporting that the midnight car ferry sailing has been declared full, leaving the remaining passengers with a potential 5-hour wait for the next crossing.
New ferry plans take a big step forward. From the Isle of Wight Observer, read by Susan. Amid widespread concern about the costs, reliability and declining services offered by Red Funnel and Whitelink, a locally owned company is offering a glimmer of hope. The vision for a new Portsmouth to Ryde service from White Gateway Limited is fundamentally different from existing services because the plans include attracting lower investors to share in the ownership of the new ferry operating company Ryde Port 2000, which will provide additional cost-effective and reliable cross-Solent links. WGL have signed a memorandum of understanding with Portsmouth International Port, who will provide a dedicated berth for the new service. In further commitments to the island, it is envisaged that the 3 new all-electric ferries will be built locally and powered by dedicated island-based solar farm. They will carry around 60 to 80 cars and small vans, but no buses or lorries. The company would also welcome regulation of the service it offers to provide passengers with security over the frequency and cost of crossings. The company will now be working with the Isle of Wight Council, local MPs and the government to secure national significant infrastructure project designation, which would enable planning permission for the new Ryde terminal to be fast-tracked. Director of WGL, Danny Fisher, said, "We have been working on this exciting new project for almost 10 years now. Securing a dedicated berth in Portsmouth is a significant step forward. We want this new ferry service to bring benefits for islanders and also give them the opportunity to invest in it and own it. The time frame will depend heavily on planning permission for the new port, which will be built on land which we own. But we are hopeful that we could start sailings within 2 to 3 years if we are successful in getting the support we are seeking, which we will speed up the planning process." A recently commissioned independent passenger survey on cross-Solent ferry usage confirmed that there would be a strong customer support for the introduction of the proposed new ferry services. Leader of the Isle of Wight Council, Phil Jordan, welcomed the news. He added, "I'm incredibly supportive of this fantastic new initiative, which is bringing forward vital connectivity options for islanders and visitors alike. This is a much needed project which will help us as an island community to invigorate businesses, tourism, connectivity, NHS and much more. Travel options to the mainland are a vital service that islanders want, need and deserve. I therefore welcome support with additional cross-Solent travel opportunity."
This is Michael reading an article from Isle of Wight Radio. Newport to Sandown cycle track upgrade to start soon. Work is to begin shortly to rebuild and resurface a section of the Newport to Sandown cycle track, which has become prone to flooding over the past few years. The work by Island Roads will improve 660 metres of the cycle track at Blackwater from a point 100 metres south of Blackwater Hollow to Birchmoor Lane. The project will see 120 metres of the cycle track resurfaced and raised to make it less prone to flooding, and a further 540 metres of adjoining track also resurfaced to improve the ride quality. Work is due to start on June the 10th and complete on July the 12th. The work is being done at this time of year because the area being improved needs to be dry. To minimise inconvenience, Island Roads has sought to use the window outside of both school public holidays and events such as Walk the Wight when the path is particularly busy and the main summer holiday season. During work it will be necessary to close a section of the track between Blackwater Hollow and Birchmoor Lane, but a short diversion, which will be signed, will enable pedestrians and cyclists to continue to travel between Blackwater and Merston and beyond. An Island Road spokesperson said, We apologise for any inconvenience this project may cause, but as users of this track will know, the work to reduce the occurrences of flooding and to improve the surface will be of great benefit to the island's walking and cycling infrastructure. Please note that the start and finish times of the project may be subject to change due to issues such as inclement weather. This is particularly so if the location is prone to flooding.
This is Katrina reading from the Island Echo. Storm Overflow Projects awarded share of £40 million Innovation Fund. Southern Water's work to innovate as part of its wider goal of driving down the use of storm overflows has been recognised, with 2 projects being awarded a share of Ofwat's Innovation Fund. The schemes were awarded funding from Ofwat at its 4th Water Breakthrough Challenge, which looks at solutions with the potential to deliver wide-scale transformational change benefiting customers, society and the environment. The first project to benefit will receive £1.58 million and will help Southern Water develop a platform for water quality monitoring that uses machine learning and artificial intelligence to analyse and calibrate data from monitors. If proven, the platform will support efforts in expanding water quality monitoring of water bodies across the region. These will help the utility company to improve its ability to learn more about water quality, to help in creating healthier rivers and seas. The project will address the challenges that water quality monitors have, as due to the environment they are in, maintenance and calibration is challenging and expensive. Using AI and machine learning could be a game changer that, if successful, will make it much easier to deploy more monitors whilst improving the accuracy of information that they provide. The second project will benefit from £1 million and will help to develop a unique platform to help Southern Water make informed decisions about where to put sustainable urban drainage solutions. SUDS. SUDS are a holistic approach to managing rainfall that mimic natural drainage processes, helping to reduce flooding, watercourse erosion and pollution risks caused by development. They can also make our urban areas more climate resilient. Rory Miles, Southern Water Innovation Programme Manager, says, "Innovation is keen for activities across Southern Water, from developing new solutions to help us tackle big challenges, from water efficiency to protecting our environment. We need to think creatively and collaborate in and out of the water sector to address these very complex challenges. Both of these projects will help us in our work creating healthier rivers and seas, and will enable us to implement more solutions across our region through finding the best places to place SUDS, SUDS, and to support an expansion of our water quality monitoring." Helen Campbell, Senior Director of Ofwat, adds, "There are big challenges in the water industry that must be solved. Some are well known and others are less so. In our 4th Water Breakthrough Challenge, we called for solutions with potential to deliver wide-scale, transformational change for customers, society and the environment. And that's exactly what today's winners have done. From rain gardens to prevent flooding, to green energy from treated sewage, innovations to cut the water sector's carbon footprint, to robots that patrol the pipe network. The winners are all helping shape a more sustainable and efficient water sector."
This article from On the White, read by Howard, is concerned with the Falklands warcraft Foxtrot 8. The only surviving seaworthy craft from the Falklands War will make the short trip across the Solent from Portsmouth Historic Dockyard to feature at Isle of Wight Armed Forces Day later this month. Foxtrot 8, that's F8, is best known for her contribution in the South Atlantic during the 1982 Falklands War. F8 was one of 4 vessels of its type carried on board HMS Fearless. With her sister craft, F8, played a major part in landing Royal Marine and paratroop contingents on the Falklands Islands at San Carlos Water, later to be known as Bomb Alley. These craft help maintain a continuous flow of stores and support ashore, pausing only for enemy air raids. Councillor Ian Dorr, event organiser, said, "There's nothing glamorous about war, and F8 is a reminder of some of the grim experiences of battle. Equally, though, it reminds us of the courage of those involved, not just the troops on the craft going ashore on the island, but those operating the craft itself. F8 is in incredible shape and is literally floating history, a relic from a war that took place just shy of 8,000 miles away 42 years ago. It's a craft that is bristling with heritage and is with us at the event. History cannot be avoided, and we can and should learn from the past. This really is something special, and you'll be able to engage and get aboard. F8 will be based at Ryde Marina alongside a combat support boat from 17 Port and Maritime. A landing raft known as Mexifloat, used by the Royal Logistic Corps, will be on display on Ryde Sands. The combat support boat is a powerful, versatile craft which has a major role in supporting both bridging and amphibious operations. It's a general-purpose working boat that also supports diving and ship-to-shore operations and resupply support. Councillor Dorr added, "Thanks goes to Mermaid Gin for sponsoring this vessel, and the synergy is obvious. With what their team achieved after completing the world's toughest row with them across the Atlantic, it couldn't be more appropriate. Paul Berry is an ex-naval petty officer, and with all of them, there's a natural affinity with the sea. Foxtrot 8 will be on display for you to interact with in Ryde Marina. For those with an interest in waterborne craft, history, heritage, and courageous spirit, the first pontoon by the slipway is your first port of call, a real mix of the old and the new. Ahoy, ahoy."
I am Gerard.
And I'm Mary.
News items and sport. Protest in Yarmouth over high ferry fares. A boisterous demonstration against Whitelink ferry prices took place at Yarmouth Harbour on Saturday morning. The protest was organized by Stuart Blackburn, West White coordinator of the Whitelink Users Group, WUG, and attended by parliamentary candidates Cameron Palin, Green Party, Richard Quigley, Labour, and Bob Seeley, Conservative, along with Chris Jarman, Isle of Wight councillor for Totland. Around 40 people with banners and placards made their displeasure at the company known by chanting "Fairer Fares." Speaking on a loudspeaker, WUG representative Nigel Talbot said, "We are here because we want fairer fares. We don't get a fair service from the ferries." Whitelink is not interested in looking after its customers, only looking after their shareholders. We are fed up with the service we are getting. Islanders need to get to the mainland for college, hospital appointments, and to see our families. but Whitelink is stopping us from doing that with their prices. We are supported by all political parties, even though it's not a political matter. Mr. Talbot added, "We have no problem with the hard-working staff. Our only problem is with the owners." Protesters then gave 3 cheers for the staff in a show of support. Other West White parliamentary candidates are Ian Pickering, Reform, and Nick Stewart, Lib Dems.
Villages unite over cake and creativity. The Chillerton and Gatcombe Galleyburger Festival was an amazing success, with more than 5,000 visitors to the 2 villages and 550 votes to decide the winning scarecrow. Aunt Sally's tea room was so busy they ran out of homemade cake twice, with panicked calls to local residents to bake more, with one lady whipping up 40 cakes to keep sweet-toothed visitors satisfied. Tim Bailey, trustee of the Gallybaggers Inn, said this year's festival was an amazing success and we've had really positive feedback. This is a wonderful community event with well over 100 scarecrows and 96 individual participants. We're already looking forward to doing it all again in 2 years' time. The eventual winner was Rachel Groves and family for her whimsical creation on Miss Trunchbull from Matilda at the top of the green in Chillerton. Rachel was presented with the Anne Dent Memorial Cup.
Dedication to girl guiding, recognized at barbecue. In celebration of National Volunteers Week, Girl Guiding Isle of Wight's Commissioner Linda Stone hosted a barbecue and recognition event, inviting members, their families, and supporters. Special guests included High Sheriff Graham Biss and his wife Sue, as well as Girl Guiding Isle of Wight President Gioa Mingela Giddens and her husband Richard. During her annual report, Linda highlighted the significance of Girl Guiding as the largest female-only organization for girls and young women, with over 600 members and 160 adult leaders and helpers on the island. She commended the volunteers, whose collective service mounted to an astounding 680 years. A surprise ensued when South West England Chief Commissioner Rachel Tatum presented Linda with a prestigious Silver Oakleaf Award, acknowledging her lifelong dedication to girl guiding, right through from Brownie to Island Commissioner. Volunteer awards were presented for 5, 10, and 20 years of service, with special recognition for Donna Sanders Steele and Angela Wallace for 30 years of commitment. Donna and Claire Williams also recently earned canal boating qualifications, expanding activity options for island girls. Janet Lovell received a Good Service Award for over 20 years of dedication, while Susan Whitewood was honored with a 50-year service award. Susan's remarkable journey began as a Brownie, culminating in her becoming the first Queen's Guide in Ventnor and the first female Duke of Edinburgh's Gold Award achiever on the island. Musical entertainment by the crew added a nautical flair. Toilet chain turned into mayoral regalia. Within hours of the county press going on sale last week, historian Alan Stroud was emailed by John Farthing with some interesting photos in relation to Alan's Heritage article about former County Press editor Walter Sibick. One of Walter's contacts was Arthur Williams, described in the article as a well-known local character and self-styled mayor of Gatcombe. John, a friend of the late historian Brian Greening, had previously taken photographs of the chain of office Mayor Williams had commissioned. Legend has it, he insisted it was made from a toilet chain. The chain legend reads, Ver prositi tenax, which means a man of tenacious purpose.
Injured by a herd of cows. A dog walker was charged by a herd of cows near Knighton yesterday morning and suffered injuries which caused him to be flown to Southampton Hospital by the Hampshire and Isle of Wight Air Ambulance team. The man was walking 4 dogs, one of whom was blind and was missing for a while after the incident, but was later located.
In sport, there was success for Shanklin Sandown Rowing Club over the weekend of the 25th of May. 3 crews travelled to Dorney Lake for the National Schools Regatta. Carter Horrocks and Louis Shisby produced another dominant performance to win the boys' J16 double sculls. The crew won the time trial by 10 seconds and then, in the final, led from the start, holding a boat length lead over their main challengers. They went on to extend that to 2 lengths in the closing stages. Fred Jemza Pipe secured an excellent 5th spot in the B final of the J16 single sculls, recording a new personal best time for 2K. The girls' J14 coxed quad of Rose Collier, Connie Batley-Smith, Ella Hayden, Leila Katie Rewa, and Esme Walters, the cox, produced an excellent performance to finish 3rd in the B final. The club also enjoyed further success at the second Hampshire and Dorset Regatta of the season at Poole. There were wins for the girls' J14 squad, and the girls' J14 double of Katiriwa and Batley Smith with crewmates Easy Bounds and Rose Collier finishing in 2nd spot. Esme Walters competing in the ladies' novice sculls in challenging conditions, recording a 3rd spot finish on her coastal sculling debut.
This year is the 80th anniversary of the Normandy landings that launched the Allies back into Western Europe. Part of this story is due to the island's strategic position in the English Channel. Much of the preparation for the landings took place here. Its military importance was such the island became a restricted area, with the passage of civilians crossing the Solent being strictly controlled. The presence of so many troops did affect the lives of many residents who had men billeted with them. In addition to warships, many of the assault and tank landing craft were built on the island. Troops and tank crews billeted on the island trained around the coast in beach landings and cliff assault.
There were so many carrying out exercises that the Royal Army Medical Corps had a hospital and 400 staff at Osborne stable block to cater not only for normal emergencies, but also training accidents. It took much preparation to complete the laying of pipelines for fuel across the country, beneath the waters of the Solent, and across the island to the pumping stations at Sandown and Shanklin. Once the landings were successful, the pipelines on these beaches were connected to more on floating drums that were towed across the channel, laying a seabed pipe to the French beaches. One of the pumps can be seen at the Bembridge Heritage Centre, and one of the Pluto's pipes run down Shanklin Chine. The River Medina became full of Thames barges containing navigation buoys. Shortly before the invasion, a fleet of the Trinity House tenders that maintain navigation buoys assembled at their depot in East Cowes. As the invasion fleet assembled along the south coast, the tenders followed minesweepers, laying a pattern of navigation buoys across the English Channel to guide the ships to the Normandy beaches. The surprise element achieved by the attack is remarkable, as many islanders from that period have commented on the number of military and supply vessels anchored in the Solent in the weeks leading up to the invasion. Others have commented that they could just hear the sound of heavy gunfire across the channel on that sunny morning. Many wondered how many troops would return. East Cowes Heritage Centre has a Whippingham School logbook for 1944, and inside is pinned one of the special cloth badges that all the troops who left the island on D-Day were given to wear on their uniforms. It depicts an angel over the needles. We wonder how many of these badges survive.
Sandown Beach among UK's best. Sandown's beach near Eastern Gardens has won a Seaside Award for summer 2024 from environmental charity Keep Britain Tidy. The beach met high standards in safety and services such as first aid and lifeguards, local environmental information, sufficient water quality, and environmental management, including litter and waste control. The accolade follows ongoing efforts by Sandown Town Council and partner agencies to improve bathing water qualities and invest in beach-specific services and activities. These recognition schemes underline the importance of maintaining Britain's coastal spaces and encourage other local councils to strive for similar accolades. Sandown Mayor Alex Lightfoot said, "Sandown continues to invest in lifeguards, beach bins, buoys in the bay, showers at Eastern Gardens, and this year, working with longshoremen, plan for the raking of beaches." Keep Britain Tidy Chief Executive Alison Ogden-Newton said, "These awards are a credit to the collective efforts of beach managers, volunteers, residents and businesses who have worked tirelessly to maintain, protect and improve some of our best loved and most popular beaches, and we'd like to take this moment to recognise and applaud them."
Hero recalls courage and sacrifice on longest day. D-Day was the largest seaborne invasion in history, marking the beginning of the liberation of France and Western Europe. And Isle of Wight veteran Alec Penstone was right in the thick of it. The Shanklin men who served the Royal Navy throughout the Second World War with distinction took part in Arctic convoys and had been on one to Russia when his crew was diverted. The Royal Navy veteran was in Normandy for France's 80th anniversary D-Day commemorations to pay his respects to his shipmates on Wednesday. The last time he was in Normandy, Alec was shown the grave of his cousin who had to crash land before midnight on the 5th of June. Alec remembered being anchored off the island and could see the Needles and Solent being covered in ships. Alec Penstone may have lost his sight, but in his mind's eye he can see D-Day just as vividly now as he did 80 years ago. His role was that of a submarine detector on board an escort ship, working 27 feet below the waterline with his own means of communication to the bridge being a telephone. I was not told why I was signing the official secret acts until I was told I was using a secret weapon to destroy U-boats, explained Alec on an item recorded by the BBC for its D-Day 80 live event in Portsmouth yesterday, Wednesday. What crossed the English Channel was a huge armada of ships. Alec was in the thick of it. It was one of those very important jobs. As far as the eyes could see, right to the horizon, I could see ships of all shapes and sizes. During the early hours of the 6th of June 1944, that was when Alec was told he was part of a major Allied invasion and going to Normandy.
His vessel acted as protection for the invading craft from the U-boats. Alec was at action stations for about 40 hours. Without his boat and others like it, there would have been a massacre, says Alec. We were doing our job. Each one knew what they were doing, and if one didn't do their job properly, the whole ship was in danger. It was a question of doing what you were trained to do and hope for the best. Once everyone was in position on the French coast, the Allies opened fire, the huge crash of guns bringing an immense cacophony of noise. All we could hear below was explosions. I can't remember being scared. Alec, now 99, has been a regular visitor to Normandy ever since. Now a place of quiet reflection, with only the sound of waves lapping onto the beaches, which were once a blood-soaked killing ground for so many. Whenever I go over to Normandy, I feel an immense sense of pride to have taken part in the invasion.
Last stop before D-Day landings. In the weeks before D-Day, the parts of the Mulberry harbours were collected together at Peel Bank off Woodside Beach and Barton Beach. They were moored to heavy concrete blocks sunk on the seabed. At Peel Bank, over 1,000 troops were trained in the assembly of the various parts of the harbour. The men were billeted at local temporary camps and were transported to the harbour unit in launches using the landing stage and seawall at the end of Fishbone Lane. Very soon after D-Day, the sections of the harbours were towed or transported across the channel to form the Mulberry harbours at the Normandy beaches. Today, the Peel buoy marks the Peel Bank of Woodside. A new type of anchor was designed for the soft seabed of Normandy to secure all these harbour elements. This was the Kite Harbour. Resembling a small plough, this anchor was designed to dig in the seabed. The Mulberry Harbour roadways were flexible to withstand sea conditions. The floating supports had to be securely anchored to the seabed. The 600-ton kite anchors were found to be capable of resisting a pull of 30 tons. 1,240 kite anchors were ordered in 1943 from 10 firms and were ready in March 1944. This number was eventually doubled. Some artifacts were lost during training, including up to 10 kite anchors. Because these anchors were classed as disposable, any losses did not have to be reported. The same went to some drums of wire moorings left behind on the beach. The kite anchor proved its value in Normandy during a great storm that struck the Mulberry Harbours in late June 1944.
The British harbour Mulberry Bee had correctly doubled up on the anchors, and it survived intact. Unfortunately, the American harbour had only used half the necessary number of anchors, so the weight of the harbour elements caused by the anchors to drag, with disastrous results. Mulberry A had to be closed down. By August 17, 1944, Peel Bank was cleared of the concrete moorings and the damaged units that had not been taken to France. Recently, some of the kite anchors from Woodside were lifted and sent to the Mary Rose Trust for conservation. Some anchors and reels can still be seen on the beach. The island also had a role in prepping the duplex drive tanks, and Osborne Bay was chosen as the most secluded and secret place to train the troops who would be using these special floating tanks on D-Day. 1,400 troops each received 3 weeks training on how to use the tanks. Driving them off the landing craft, 1,200 yards from the shore, was the most difficult part of the exercise. These D-Day tanks were sometimes called Donald Duck tanks or Hobart's Funnies, after Major General Sir Percy Hobart, who was in charge of the unit. The Sherman tanks were fitted with a collar that was held in place with inflatable tubes, so they could be driven like boats. They had propellers that ran on the same shaft as the drive tanks tracks. The troops operating them could drive ashore, lowering their canvas fronts so that the guns could fire ahead. Where the wave conditions were good, the tanks were very successful on D-Day, and casualties on the beaches were much lower. General Montgomery reported favourably on the D-Day tanks at Gold, Sword and Juno beaches, but also reported that all had sunk when they had tried to land at Omaha Beach because of the weather.
Section 2. White Memories and Nostalgia. 74 years ago, in early June 1950, 2 double-decker buses were put onto service for the first time on the island since the 1920s. The buses, which covered sundown routes, were introduced to carry more passengers. In brown and cream colors, they ran on the Enterprise route. 49 years ago, on June the 7th of 1975, a visit to the island by the Queen Mother was enjoyed by many. After she attended St. Lawrence Church for the dedication of the memorial windows, she opened a new home for disabled adults in East Cowes. Ravers had the opportunity to visit Rides La Babaloo Club every night, every Sundays and Mondays. The advertisement for the club at Ryde Airport where McDonald's is now situated, told its customers, "Be casual, be smart." 34 years ago, on the 8th of June 1990, a Shanklin woman was down to her last 5 pence when she won £42,602 during a bingo evening in Shanklin's new playhouse. Diane Burkett of Coronation Gardens said she was on cloud 9 after winning the money. "I am scared that at any minute I might wake up and find that it has all been a dream."
124 years ago, in early June 1900, Fanny White, wife of the landlord of Ventnor's Crab and Lobster Hotel, Tap, was charged with selling adulterated rum. The rum consisted of a mixture of drippings from various empty spirit and sherry bottles, which the court believed should never have been sold. Mrs. White was fined £1 with 11 shillings and sixpence, £1 and 7p costs. A damaged sewer outlet in Cowes Harbour caused a dispute between East Cowes District Council and Edward Agdis, owner of the Venus coal barge, which supplied coal to boats in Cowes Harbour. The council said the damage was caused by the barge, but Mr. Agdis objected to the £59 fine. The council agreed to reduce it to £50. 99 years ago, on June 6, 1925, there was a mystery at Bryston after the body of an elderly seafaring man was washed up 2 miles east of Grange Chine. The coroner believed that the death was accidental, although he recorded an open verdict. Islanders who believed that they were aging too quickly were urged to reach for a bottle of Doan's kidney pills. An advertisement stated that many islanders felt older and slower than they should because their kidneys were not filtering blood quickly enough. The pills promised to strengthen and stimulate your age-worn kidneys and make you feel years younger.
My view: decline here and across the pond. History shows that no civilization lasts forever. Most end due to political weakness, turmoil, and infighting. But enough about Labour and the Conservatives. Last week, America seemed more banana republic than seat of democracy. Their political system is almost unfathomable. Seriously, how are Trump and Biden still the best candidates they can find? Donald could be in jail next month and still run for president. His farcical trial could have taken place in any state. But if he is correct and his approval numbers are just 5% in New York, it's hardly surprising they drag him into court there. U.S. federal law can tie any candidate in knots. The U.S. equivalent of our Crown Prosecution Service is always an elected person, and maybe the judge seemed a little partial too. How can a jury sit through weeks of complex testimony and find the defendant guilty on 34 counts in just hours? The only real surprise was how they found 12 people willing to swear on oath they had no prior opinion of Donald J. Trump. Yeah, I know, he is guilty. But if Boris Johnson or Tony Blair went on trial here, do you think they could find 12 genuinely impartial jurors? America worries me. But what about our lot? I'm already fed up with the election, so decided to look at the Green Party. Their national 55 miles per hour speed limit put me right off, honestly. Don't the Greens realize islanders need to drive much faster than other people? That's because the ferry, after the one we are aiming for, is bound to be cancelled at short notice due to lack of essential crew. Their silent fireworks policy seemed silly, but they do support our right to buy drugs legally from the local pharmacy. If the idea of popping to your local chemist for some heroin or coke, along with your blood pressure tablets, appeals, vote Green. The Greens also might abolish low-cost airlines and cruise ships, so we'd all be forced to holiday here, like Bob Seeley. Does anybody really believe that? If Bob Seeley loses this election, he'll start to pay the £1,235 monthly rent on his Brightstone pad himself, when he can no longer charge it to us taxpayers? I like Labour's Richard Quigley, so voting Labour's was a possibility, until I heard Shadow Health Secretary Wes Streeting say, in order to be inclusive, the NHS should invite trans women to cervical screening clinics. If Richard knocks at yours, ask him if any trans women turn up, what do they examine? I know it does not directly affect me, but Sir Keir has said, it's not right to say that only women have a cervix. I am not a trained doctor, but surely that's just biological fact. How can a man who's so muddled about the birds and the bees be trusted to run the country? The Tories have been telling whoppers on immigration since David Cameron's reduced it to the tens of thousands. Porky in 2010. Can anyone explain why overseas students coming here to study need to bring their mum and granny with them? Most kids I know can't wait to ditch their parents when going to university. And what about those Bulgarian benefit fraudsters who cheated 6,000 identities to steal 54 million from the UK taxpayer? Many of the kids, they claim, for never left Bulgaria. The judge said they were laughing at us, handing all that money over without proper checks. Why do we allow EU citizens to live here on benefits? We are always being told they came here to work. If a Bulgarian policeman had not raised the alarm, they would still be collecting universal credit, housing benefit, council tax benefit, child benefit, and working tax credit. No wonder the country is broke.
My Island People, Places and Pooches by Jim Gibbons. My column is in two parts this week. When I moved to this island late in 1999, I had already heard of the Walk the White and was very intrigued by the possibility of walking from one tip to the other. If my memory serves, the next year's walk was postponed to October because of a foot and mouth outbreak. I considered entering for the big one, the 26 miles, and thought I had a good chance of completing it, but not within the stipulated time. So I entered for the first half, and my daughter Maggie was good enough to come with me. My main recollections of that first experience were, firstly, the slope of the first challenging hill as the route led up to the cliffs of Yaverland. This made me wonder whether I had bitten off more than I could chew, particularly as on that slope you cannot tell how long it stretches. Fortunately, it is quite short, and one gets the opportunity to get one's breath back in the descent towards Brading. Another memory is of the weather, and indeed, the delightful weather of my first 4 or 5 of these walks, dry, sunny, and not too hot. Lastly, having rested at Carisbrooke, I foolishly got to my feet, leaving my cap on the ground. I looked at it and thought, can I bend down? Maggie saved me the trouble. I did several of these walks in the next 20 years, and my overall impression is of good fellowship of the walkers and the kindness of landowners, supporting the firms, stewards and organisers in a very good cause. By contrast, I came across a verse I wrote to commemorate the death of a beloved family dog, and I know many of you have had a similar experience. Her job she has done and her race she has won, protected her humans, had fun in the sun. Her charges she guarded, so zealous from harm, while showing unknowingly, doggedly charm. Our dogs are not given, they're only seen, only been lent. They leave us remembering Kipling's lament. O brothers and sisters, I bid you beware of giving your heart to a dog to tear.
And now, what's on? On Sunday, the 30th of June, Army Forces Day. Show your support. From 10:30 a.m. to 5 p.m. at Eastern Parade Gardens, Ride. Attractions include the Red Arrows, Battle of Britain Memorial Flight, Royal Navy Parachute Display Team, Army Air Corps Gazelle, Falklands Landing Craft, Fort Cumberland Guard, marching bands, live music, children's activities, interactive stands, forces charities, Vectis rifles, marching parade, or RBL riders, combat support boat. See us at www.isleofwightarmedforcesday.co.uk.
More big names line up for the jazz weekend. There are just a few weeks left to buy early bird tickets to the 11th Isle of Wight Jazz Weekend, featuring a UK exclusive performance for 2024 by Brazil's Daniela Soldaid. The singer is widely considered to be her country's best bossa nova style artist, and she will be joined by American guitarist Nate Najar for an intimate performance at Newport Methodist Church. The Isle of Wight Jazz Weekend 2024 will run between September the 18th and the 22nd. Part of their European tour, the September 20 dates will be Daniela and Nate's only UK appearance in 2024. Top-class guitarist, the island's own Sol Grimshaw, will return as a special guest at Dixieland and traditional jazz specialist, the Windy City Weatherbirds. Sol and the 7-piece London-based band, featuring 3 brothers, should prove to be a big hit on Saturday, September the 21st. Also playing on the Saturday are trumpeter vocalist Georgina Jackson from the Ronnie Scott's Jazz Orchestra with her own band, Sasa and Brass, and multiple award-winning saxophonist Tony Kofi, who brings his Inside Straight Cannonball Adderley tribute to Newport Minster. Sunday, September the 22nd will feature Shades of Shearing, Jim Mullen and Claire Martin OBE, and Alan Barnes and David Newton. Jazz fans can also expect gypsy jazz music group Muse Manouche, Gary Plumley's Alley Cats and John Thorne's Shades of Ellington. Guitarists Tom Ford and Nick Page will also appear with their trios. As well as music as the main venues, there will be a return of the Fringe event at pubs and other venues in Newport. On September the 18th, there will be an appearance by double bassist and vocalist Nicola Farnan and her trio. On September the 19th, Cameron Rossi, originally from the islands, will bring his London-based quartet to Mountbatten. There is also a welcome return for the Nick Page trio. Early bird tickets close at the end of June. The event is sponsored by Red Funnel and the Isle of Wight County Press. For tickets and more information, visit iwjazzweekend.co.uk.
Adlib Theatre presents The Taming of the Shrew by William Shakespeare, an open-air production at Northwood House on Friday the 14th and Saturday the 15th of June at 6 p.m. and on Sunday the 16th of June at 2:30 p.m. Adult £10, student £8. You can check all events at northwoodhouse.org.
Saturday the 15th of June, Abbey Brass Summer Concert at 7:30 p.m. Abbey Brass presents a concert of music from film, TV, musicals and classical and brass band favourites. This is a free entry event with a retiring collection. Binstead Methodist Church, 17 Arnold Road, Ryde. Band manager at abbeybrassisleofwight.com or 07863 390 683.
On Thursday the 13th of June, Vectis Brass Band at 8 p.m. Evening concert in Rilstone Gardens, 11 Popham Road, Shanklin.
Letters. Memories of D-Day on the Isle of Wight by Mary Holt from Wootton. I was born in East Cowes just before the war broke out. I can remember the sirens and going to the shelter and seeing where places had been bombed. We lived in York Avenue just above the recreation ground, and opposite there were no houses there then, just woodland and fields. I remember my father telling us later that on the day of departure the troops could not board the boats off the shores of East Cowes because of bad weather conditions, so had to overnight in a secluded area which was the land opposite us. My father was a keen gardener, and the front garden had lots of flowers in bloom. Before departing, one of the troops came across the road and asked my father if he could have a bunch of red, white and blue flowers to put in the captain's cabin, which my father proudly gave him, none the wiser to what was happening. Within the next 24 hours, everyone knew what had happened, and my father often spoke about it in the following years.
Ferries worse now. A letter from Carol Stocking from Newport. In the early 70s, we were, even then, complaining about the cost of ferry travel and also of electricity. Do you remember how we used to have intermittent power cuts? I recall sitting round the dining table with my children and lighted by a candle, reading to them Winnie the Pooh. There was much talk of a tunnel or a bridge. In fact, I wrote then to the County Press, saying that if we had a bridge across from the western end of the island to the mainland, it could have a section in the center to lift up for yacht and small boats. But under the water line, all that would be necessary for producing electricity from the 4 times a day tidal movements, as it is done at Saint-Malo in France. The Solent at the western end is too shallow for cruise liners, tankers and other big ships, except when there is an exceptionally high spring tide. So normal movement would not be affected. However, of course, nothing was done, and now we are in a worse position, with it costing more to travel from Portsmouth to the island than it does to go to France. If, of course, the ferries are actually running at all.
A big thank you to those who helped by Janet Marsh. On Tuesday, May the 28th, buses were running late because of hold-ups, so it was at about 4:50 p.m. when I caught the number 8 bus from Newport bus station. I had had a brief conversation with someone while waiting for the bus and felt quite normal. But when I tried to text my sister to let her know which bus I had caught, I found myself unable to choose the right letters to form the words. I tried unsuccessfully, but I knew I had a problem. I had had a stroke about 18 months ago, which had taken my speech and communication skills, so suspected a similar situation was happening then. I turned to the lady sitting behind me and asked if she could help me. I could not speak properly, but she was patient and came to sit by me. I think she said she was a nurse at the hospital, which was lucky for me as she was undeterred by my inability to speak. I switched my phone to my sister's phone number, and she spoke calmly to my sister, so did not worry her unduly. When the time came for me to get off the bus, she pressed the bell and led me to the front. I think she asked the bus driver, also female, to wait for my sister to arrive to collect me, but there was no need to delay the bus as my sister was there. I want to thank the nurse and the bus driver for their help and understanding and let them know that I am all right now. Thank you.
My Rare D-Day Parabike by Andrew Brown of Ryde. I own 2 1944 BSA Army Parabikes, portable folding bicycles, both of which were used on D-Day. I took one over to France last week, to the actual Normandy beach it landed on, via landing craft 80 years ago. It attracted a great deal of interest from French residents. Many photographed it on phones and cameras, as well as asking questions. Very few parabikes survive from a batch of 65,000 made between 1942 and 1944. In 1956, 2 were sold by the Ministry of Defense to a military surplus dealer and were advertised in Exchange and Mart for £3, 12.5 shillings, or £3.62 in today's money. I acquired my first parabike from a dealer in 1982 for £20. It was previously owned by island artist Mr. Voicy until the late 1970s. With help from the Imperial War Museum, I restored it, complete with its original army number, R49347. In 1983, it was used to celebrate the 1000th parachute jumped by Captain Mickey Munn of the Red Devils at Bembridge Airport. My second was acquired in 1984 via the owner of a large house in Wootton, which was about to be converted into a care home. The parabike was derelict, but I restored it, adding its number R49539. This is the one I took to France. It was my way of paying tribute and allowed people to see a tangible piece of D-Day 80 years on.
Greens Can Drive and Fly Abroad by Vic Slothian, Isle of Wight Green Party candidate. This is a wide-open general election in Isle of Wight East. Thousands of islanders are weighing up the choices and switching votes for the very first time. Simon Ratton, County Press Letters, the 31st of May, says he cannot vote Green because he has gas central heating, a diesel car and flies abroad. I have news for Mr. Ratton. I also have gas central heating, a petrol car and fly abroad, although only once in the last 7 years. I usually take the train. You do not need to be an eco-warrior to vote Green. You simply should care about the environment, want increased funding for the NHS, more council houses, publicly owned ferries and clean beaches free of sewage. That's why we're on track to win many more MPs in this election, including this brand new seat in East Wight.
And the final letter is from Fred Woodworth of Ventnor. Ventnor roads need sorting. What is taking it so long? Why has Lower Gillscliff Road been closed for over 3 months with no evident progress apart from clearing the rocks, rubble and vegetation? We have been informed that specialist contractors are needed to secure the rock face. Where are they? Are they as scarce as dentists on the Isle of Wight? I would have thought that with our frequent geological problems, there must be resident experts. There's plenty of work for them. So the trees that were growing out of the rock face have been removed. Why they were allowed to grow there, I can't understand. Loose rocks needs to be removed and some kind of wire netting installed. Yes, well, get on with it. If there is a question of responsibility, then get to work. Get the work done and sort out that problem later. If the landowner had not been warned of the need to keep the rock face clear of vegetation, then he or she might not be entirely to blame. Keeping the roads open is ultimately the responsibility of the Isle of Wight Council, not Island Roads. Lower Gill Cliff Road is the shortest, safest alternative route from West Ventnor and St. Lawrence to the east of the island. Both St. Lawrence Chute and Zigzag Road are hazardous, narrow, two-way roads, and the latter is becoming increasingly broken up due to traffic. Continuing to allow parking along these roads presents further obstacles. Once the Graben is closed, I see problems for delivery lorries and large vehicles trying to access Ventnor. Thank you for listening. Goodbye from Gerard.
Goodbye from Mary. The In Touch programme follows. There is no scaffolding news this week. Gene therapy. Although not now new, gene therapy is an evolving procedure for the treatment of a range of eye conditions. Recent developments include an American-based trial involving a gene editing process known as RISPR. We speak to Dr. Eric Pearce and Dr. Mark Panisi, who were both involved in the trial, as well as Olivia Cook, who tells us about her experience of undergoing the pioneering treatment. Closer to home, we caught up with Professor Rob Lucas from the University of Manchester. Professor Lucas tells us about gene developments in gene therapy here in the UK.
BBC Sounds. Music, radio, podcasts.
Hello. Developing new treatments for eye disease is almost always a series of very small steps, which is why we try on In Touch to be very careful how we report on progress so as not to raise false hopes. Congenital eye conditions have always been particularly resistant to improvements in sight. And while not now new, gene therapy is an evolving procedure for a range of eye conditions. Well, now the results of a trial in the United States for a group of patients with the inherited condition Leber's congenital amaurosis, just published in the prestigious New England Medical Journal, is creating considerable, if cautious, optimism. Dr. Eric Pearce is principal investigator for the trial, based at Harvard Medical School. Mark Panisi is lead scientist for the trial. He's based at Oregon Health and Science University. Well, the work has been done using a new gene editing tool. And I began by asking Dr. Pearce to just explain what is new about this method of delivering medicine directly into the eye.
So what's new about this gene editing approach is instead of adding back a correct copy of a misspelled gene to the retina, gene editing is now fixing misspellings which inactivate genes inside the patient's own retina. And the ability to do that is new, and we think has the potential to be broadly applicable to treating inherited retinal disorders and hopefully many other inherited diseases as well.
So when you use the term editing, it is really like editing in the way that we perhaps recognise it, editing, sound, radio or film. It is actually separating and fixing things back together.
Yes, that's correct. Just like you would editing a Word document, the editing approach here is to remove that misspelling, literally cut it out, which allows the gene function to resume.
Perhaps I can bring in Dr. Panisi at this point. So tell us more about the trial and what it's achieved.
We start first with a very low concentration of the vector, and then we increase and treat more and more patients as time goes on. And so in this trial, we treated 14 patients, and many of them showed improvement in their vision, which was very exciting. What was exciting too was that when we did a quality of life survey, many of the patients indicated that they felt that their quality of life had improved following the therapy. Many of our patients told us stories of what seemingly might be little things to us that they could now do, but were actually very big to them. The ability to navigate a little bit better at work and not bump into people, or to be able to tell if the light on their coffee maker was on. And some patients actually went from not being able to read on the eye chart to maybe being able to read the big letter on the eye chart. We're not talking about a return to perfect vision, but even these improvements were meaningful to the patients.
What kind of patient is likely to benefit from this treatment, and is age a likely factor in its success?
I don't think it's age specifically that informs us about who could be treated. It's more the status of their retinas when we're considering whether they could benefit from this treatment.
And now we know that for very good reasons, lots of steps are usually taken between clinical trials and a procedure being widely available. What are the next steps? And if all goes well, when might we see general availability?
Well, there's a defined process for getting drugs approved, both in the United States and Europe. And the first step of that is a phase 1/2 trial, which this has been. For rare diseases, you often then have to go on and conduct an additional trial with a larger number of patients and usually some form of randomization where some patients may receive the treatment and some patients may not receive the treatment, so that you can rule out that improvements might be due to placebo effects. So we're hopeful that this will move forward.
It'd be fair to say that your chance of getting this kind of treatment would be to be involved in a trial at the moment.
This is not something that will be on the market immediately. So we would encourage patients to look into trials.
Dr. Pearce, to what extent could this work be applied to other genetic conditions which affect the eye?
So we're hopeful that CRISPR-Cas9 gene editing technologies can be used broadly to treat inherited eye conditions. We really feel like this is a proof of concept that gene editing can be done safely and effectively in people's eyes for treating retinal disease. So we think this could be applied to other specific types of genetic retinal blindness, but also other eye diseases, and really, demonstrating that gene editing can be done safely in vivo in people's bodies, I hope will help open up the use of gene editing therapies for other inherited diseases as well.
This is just the beginning for gene editing. This is really the first generation, and we're already exploring even more advanced forms of gene editing. So this is something that I expect is here to stay and will really widen our ability to treat a large number of genetic diseases. So this is a really important accomplishment for patients.
Dr. Eric Pearce, Mark Panizzi, thank you both very much indeed.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, someone who took part in the trial is 22-year-old Olivia Cook, who is joining us from Springfield, Missouri. Olivia, first of all, can you just explain the kind and degree of vision you had before the trial?
Growing up, my vision was always fairly bad, but I was able to get around. I had a really limited peripheral field of 18 degrees out of 140. Doctors kind of compared that to looking through a straw hole to give it perspective. And I also wasn't able to see in the dark at all. And if it was a dim room, I wouldn't be able to see very good in there.
I mean, how did you get to hear about the trial in the first place?
My mom was always really well connected in the vision doctor community. And when I was about 16, I think, is when the doctor in Texas reached out to my mom and let her know of this opportunity going on in Boston. So I definitely did have doubts about the actual procedure.
What were you worried about?
It would make my vision worse. I only have so much to begin with, but I do get around fine. So I was like, as long as they don't make my vision worse, I guess that it's okay. But it was a little bit hesitant for me because I had never gotten anything like this before.
And what was the experience like when you did do it?
It wasn't a very long procedure, honestly. I was in the operating room for, I think, maybe an hour. And they put me under, gave me the injection. And then when I woke up, they just had a couple of rules that I needed to follow for the next couple of weeks.
What has been the effect on your sight?
I've mostly noticed a difference in my peripheral and night vision. I had no expectation of developing any vision in those areas that I've never had vision before. And when I finally started to see glimpses of light from those sides of my vision where I've never seen anything before, I was pretty shocked about that. And now I can see better with my left eye in the dark. I would say the biggest difference that I've recognized was with the night vision. I had been at a campfire a couple of weeks ago, and usually things get kind of dark and I can't really see anymore, so I just kind of stay in one place. The other day, I was able to walk around and mingle and things based on just my left eye's progress. With my right eye, everything was still really dark. But with my left eye, I was able to actually maneuver the stumps that we were sitting on and things like that. And I was like, am I just making that up? I just wasn't believing it because it's still kind of hard for me to believe even 3 years post-op.
And what's been the wider effect on your life, if you like, or your attitude?
I'm seeing hope of there being progress in the future. If they were able to inject my eye with this tiny amount of CRISPR, and now I'm able to see things in the areas of my eyes that I haven't ever seen anything before, I can't imagine where the technology will go in the future.
Olivia Cook, thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you.
Well, in case you think that work like this is confined to the United States, we should say there is certainly research going on here too, notably at Manchester University. Well, I'm joined by Rob Lucas, who is Professor of Neuroscience, and he studies vision and optogenetics. So, Rob, I mean, first of all, just tell us a bit more about the work on gene therapy, which is being done in the UK, which might help with understanding and treatment of genetic eye conditions.
There's a lot of work going on in the UK on this topic. I think it's something that really, as a community, we should be really proud of. And it ranges from probably the most widespread activity is people just trying to understand how genes link to disease. And then at the other end is people doing like clinical trials for therapies, which, you know, we've had stuff going on here at the Eye Hospital at Manchester. The work that we do in Manchester really is slightly different to the CRISPR work that you've been talking about going on in the States. One approach to gene therapy is to use it to try and recover or deal with particular individual problems with the genome. So if you have a mutation in a particular gene, you can target that particular gene for therapy. The other approach is to think more generally about after you've had a progressive degeneration, how you can maybe try to restore some kind of vision, some kind of photosensitivity. And one approach to doing that, through which the UK has been very active, is to look at stem cell therapies. Ours is a more kind of gene therapy approach to that, which is, as you say, this topic of optogenetics. Often the primary lesion in vision loss is that the photoreceptors which are responsible for absorbing light are lost. And with optogenetics, what we try to do is reintroduce another light-sensitive protein to the remaining parts of the retina, with the hope then that that will recover that fundamental photosensitivity and be useful to restoring some level of vision.
That doesn't really rely on kind of what we've been describing as sort of editing genes. It is introducing something else.
Exactly. And so that means that as an approach, it has at least in principle, a wider application, because it doesn't matter what the origin of your photoreceptor loss is. It doesn't rely on understanding a particular gene or correcting a particular deficit. The other big advantage of it is that it's applicable under circumstances in which that vision loss has already occurred and we're trying to sort of get it back. There are lots of kind of ideas on the table and things being developed, but unfortunately it is a matter of, you know, kissing frogs and hoping that some of them turn into princes. And of course, they won't all turn into princes.
And presumably it's not just a question of kissing frogs, it's a question of money as well, isn't it? We know that funding for research can be a problem. Do you receive UK government funding for this kind of research, or has it had to rely on funding from charities like Fight for Sight?
We've been very lucky, and I think it's generally true for the field that we've been able to get money from both of those sources. So they do a fantastic job to sort of keep research moving in the right direction and make sure that this type of research is on the agenda in the UK.
Professor Rob Lucas, thank you very much indeed.
My pleasure.
And that's it for today. Remember, we do really welcome your responses, and many of the stories that we cover are the result of the things you tell us. You can email in touch at bbc.co.uk, leave voice messages on 0161 836 1338, and there's more information and the chance to download tonight's and previous editions of the programme from our website, bbc.co.uk/in touch. From me, Peter White, today's producer, Fern Lulham, and studio managers Mike Smith and Jack Morris, goodbye.
BBC Sounds. Music, radio, podcasts.